Welcome to my, I'm sorry, I'm still getting things set up. Welcome to my photography editing live stream where you can submit your images ideally before the stream starts, and then I edit them here for you live using DxO Photolab 8. And, the idea being is to learn the tools in DxO Photolab 8, help develop a workflow for editing photos in general, and maybe get some new ideas and suggestions on camera settings and things like that. And also keep in mind that everything I do here is very subjective. This is not my photo, it's yours, so it's your vision. So anything I say, don't take as a critique in any way. It's just how I would edit or shoot the photo uh, if it were mine. So, and again, that can always be very different from what you were expecting. And if you get a chance, you can always submit your edit of the photo during the stream, and then we can kind of compare what you did versus what I did. That's always fun to see. And sometimes give you a photo of mine to edit, and then I get to see what you guys do with my photo. I didn't do that this week, but I'll try and do that in the future more often. That said, disclosure: I am an affiliate for DxO Photolab. I've been a long-time user long before I became an affiliate, but I do have a exclusive 15% discount code down below. If you decide to buy any of the DxO products, I recommend Photolab 8, of course, but there's no subscription fee. It's just a one-time thing, and they're very good about updating their software over time with respect to uh, supporting new cameras and bug fixes. If you want new features and things like that, that usually you have to wait for the next version, and that comes out for the last several years. It's always been like October, November timeframe. So we can expect DxO Photolab 9 in November. Uh, but at this point, I have no hesitation recommending DxO Photolab 8 in of itself. So good to see everyone here. I see Randy's here. Good morning, and T Dobbs. Good to see you, and Seraphin and Paul and William. Adam, good to see you. Um, so that's cool. Adam's got kind of a workaround of using I guess, a new email address or being a new customer to get DxO Photolab 8. Um, I'm not recommending anybody do that, but uh, with every barrier or wall that people try to put up, there's always somebody that can figure a way around it, right? Um, okay, so let's go ahead and get into the stream or the editing. Hopefully everything works. And uh, I'm sorry for the video quality on my end in terms of my headshot. I'm temporarily using a webcam to do the streams, but I'm not important here. What's important is what I do here with your images. So I do need to do one more thing. I want to enlarge the fonts so that they're easier to see. So I did forget to set up one thing. Okay. So, all right, that should be easier to see. So we'll go ahead and start here. I'm just going to double click on the image, and that'll take me right into the customize function here. Uh, and we have a robin. Okay. And what I always like to do first, and I like to walk through my thought process and workflow when I'm doing this editing. Okay, so I'm going to apply a basic preset, which is optical corrections and denoising. And the optical corrections also include a little bit of sharpening based on, and it's an intelligent sharpening based on the lens and camera combination. So today we're shooting the G9 Mark II, nice, with the Leica 100 to 400. That's an awesome setup. Um, it's always fun to see what cameras and lens combinations you guys are using and the kind of results you get. And in terms of settings, everything looks good here. I You probably could have gone slower on the shutter speed. Uh, because there's really good stabilization in that lens, and this bird is just sitting there. But maybe you're getting ready for them to take off or something. So let's punch in. Usually, what I like to do first is just work with a crop or start to work on the composition. And for wildlife, generally, I like to do a square crop and then just come in and tighten. This is my own style. I like to fill the frame with the subject as much as I can and maybe give a little balance to the rest of the scene relative to what the subject is. Since this bird is a little bit high up, I'm going to place them a little higher up in the frame because that's sort of our point of view. And I think that works well. And with birds, I always look at three things: eyes, beaks, and talons. Uh, those need to kind of stand out, and then we work on the feather detail and the colors after that. So the other thing I like to think about is the exposure. So this image is very well exposed. I don't really have to do too much here, but if it was way off, I would go right to the global panel and start to make adjustments to the global exposure. So this is fairly well exposed, but it is a tiny bit overexposed. Some, for my taste, so I'm going to pull this back about a stop. I think about one stop is good. And that's all I'm going to do there. Now I'm just going to go directly into the local adjustment. So I'm going to start with a control point and zoom in on the eyes and beak and see if we can just bring that out. And the control points are feathered by color and luma, so chroma and luma, so that it looks a little more natural when you make adjustments, meaning it's doing chroma and luma masking directly. And I can adjust that here with these sliders. But let's just go down and just push the shadows up and see if we can bring out the eyes. Now that looks a little bit overexposed, but then I like to use the Clear View Plus, which really punches out the contrast. And then on top of that, I like to just add a little micro contrast to bring out any speculars that we can. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think that's about all we can do. Maybe a little push on the highlights. Okay, good. All right, let's do the beak. Now, beaks, if they have any color at all, I like to try to emphasize that as well. The beak is fairly well exposed, but I'm going to add a little clear view to just give it a little more pop. Micro contrast, very similar to the eyes, because it's a smooth surface. So these are the two controls I use a lot for smooth surfaces, is clear view and micro contrast. And then I'm just going to push the vibrancy. Just just give it the little more color and pop. Now, if the eye was a little bit clearer, I would also do vibrancy there as well, but it's pretty much a dark eye, so I don't need to do anything there. And then whatever I do to the beak, I can usually do the same thing to the talons. So that looks a little bit strong. I'm going to back that off a little. So I can use the same control point. It automatically duplicates when I click on a new point. So let's see how that looks. That didn't do much. So I'm going to create a new control point just for the talons. And let's just push the shadows a bit. Okay. And then clear view and micro contrast. So it's very similar to the eyes. So I think that's all we need to do there. If I try to push it anymore, it won't look natural. And now let me look at the feather detail. And I think we're good here. But just to double check, this is a preview window. If I want to see what the final output's going to look like, I'm going to use the loop tool right up here. And this will show me a little section of the final output. So I'm seeing a little bit of artifacting here. So what I might do is, let me see if I can, let me go back, let me pull this out. Let me do a local control brush again. It's actually, it looks like they're just feathers. So we'll start a new control plus. I hit the plus sign here for a new control point. And what I might try to do, I'm going to tighten up the luma mask so it doesn't bleed into the background. So I don't want to add any micro contrast or anything to the background. So the masking is just hitting the darker parts of the bird. You tighten that up a little more, maybe a little chroma, and a little tighter on the luma. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try some clear view and micro contrast. And let's get the loop in and see how that looks now. Okay. Maybe let me go over to the denoising. And if I increase the sharpness a bit, no. Back this down to 0. Let's try a little bit negative. I'm going to back off the noise reduction a bit. This may be very difficult to see in the stream, but I'm making very, very fine adjustments to make this feather detail look as natural as possible. Oh, yeah, that's too much. I'm going to put it right about there. Let me try a little bit of an unsharp mask. And we'll back that off a little bit. Okay, good. All right, I think that looks good. Now the speculars here in the background are beautiful, but I just want to temper the highlights a bit. So I'm going to go back to the local, make a new control point. Actually, I'm going to do a control line. A control line also has luma and chroma masking. I'm just going to kind of drop the eyedropper onto one of the highlights and just temper them a bit, like so. And then let's make a new control line for the greener areas. So I'm going to put the eyedropper on the green. We'll tighten up the chroma mask. And I always like to do very small increments here, 5 or 10, plus or minus 5 or 10, just to keep things nice and natural. And this time I'm going to pull on the blacks and shadows just to make them a bit darker. And bring this in. And when I'm working with the selective tones, you can see it goes black, shadow, midtone, highlight. I like to try to keep as straight a line as possible. Like I don't want this to be down here, because now I got kind of a zigzag pattern. That sort of keeps it natural, I think. And I think I'm going to go back to the other control points here. Go back to the head. I'm going to expand this one out a bit and push the shadows a bit more. In the midtones. All right. Now I'm going to hit the escape key to kind of back out of all the tools and just Just kind of eyeball the difference. Okay. Maybe a slight vignette as well. Uh, and I'm going to move the white balance. Let me make the white balance a little bit cooler. And when I do white balance, it's always like plus or minus 500 Kelvin here. Again, just to keep the image looking natural as possible, uh, without making too many dramatic changes. Okay, that looks good. Let me add a vignette. Now, if you have the film pack installed from DxO, you can go right to the special effects and just add a vignette here, like that, for example. I'm exaggerating it, but if you don't have film pack installed, you can still create a vignette very easily, just using a control point. So I'll just put the control point here, somewhere near the center. I'm a little off center because the bird's off center. Expand that out, and then turn off the chroma and luma masking, and then invert it, clicking that button here. So now I can just pull the exposure in and just add a little bit of vignette. Let me back out a little bit. And I'm going to move this around, see how that looks. I think that looks pretty good. Let me just do a quick compare again. Okay, I think globally we can be a little bit brighter. I might have pulled too much on there, so we're going to go up just a half a stop instead of a full stop like I had before. Right about there. All right, and I'm done. So I'm going to export this, put this in the same folder, suffix of DxO, and export. And that should pop up right next to uh, the raw file here in the film strip. Oops. Yep, there it goes. So I'm going to reset the original raw and do a side-by-side comparison. And then I'm going to select here the output, which I just did. And then click that F9 key to kind of expand or hide the tools. I'm going to pull the film strip down and just adjust this. So there's the original image on the right. Let me turn off my webcam. There we go. And my edited image there on the left. So let's do a slider and zoom in and just see. Oh yeah, that looks great. I think that looks great. Maybe a little bit too much saturation on the beak. There seems to be some yellowing here, so let me correct that. But I think the feather detail came out fantastic compared to the original. Because the original, again, is a little bit soft. The optics module and the demosaicing process in DxO really brings out the detail. So I'm getting a little bit of I think maybe some glow from the beak onto the eyes. So I'm going to try and temper that a little bit. Let me bring my tools. I just hit the F9 key. So I can go back to the same control point. Oops. And this one here, And I'm going to go down to the colors and just go to the yellow and orange. I'm going to expand this out just to pick up more of the oranges and just desaturate it a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to export this one. I'm going to overwrite that. And any second now, we should be able to do a comparison. Yeah, that's better. So side by side, okay, that looks better. I definitely oversaturated the beak a little bit. And then as for the rest of the scene, yeah, I don't think we need this tree trunk here. Just cropping in. Like I said, I like to fill the frame as much as possible. And then we'll just do a slider. A slider view, really nice and tight. Bring it down. I think that looks great. Okay. Thank you, Larry, for sending that one. And let's go to uh, uh, Roger's image here. I'm going to hit F9 to bring the tools back. Let's go to a single view. So very similar picture in terms of editing. What I'm going to do though is let's apply basic preset first. And I'm going to crop square. I'm going to tilt it a little bit. Um, really good settings here. Really good. OM1 with 100 to 400. Perfect settings for a bird on a stick. So I'm going to bring this in tighter. And since we're pretty much looking eye level at this bird, I'm going to keep the bird front and center. And just use rule of thirds and put the head right there. But I want to tilt it a little bit. I feel like the bird is kind of sitting up a little bit, and I want this eye to be higher than the beak. And the way it is now, the eye is kind of eye level or below the beak. So that's going to make me come in a little tighter. And then also what that does is down here, I have a nice little line, uh, leading line into the frame with this branch down here. And we'll just balance that like that. Perfect. Okay, I like that. Uh, so this image is a bit underexposed, but that's okay. I like the brightness of the background. All I need to do is to brighten the bird up, and I can do that very, very easily with a control point. I could even probably use a auto masking brush here. So let me try that because this bird is very distinct in the frame. This masking tool is not great. I don't use it very often, but let's see. Let me see if I bring this up. Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's about the brightness I want for the bird. Now you can see that the auto masking brush spilled into the background. So what I'm going to do is just click on the eraser tool, make sure that's feathered, and let me increase the size a bit. I'm just going to go around the edges here and peel it off. And it's okay if the masking goes into the bird itself. because I'm going to go back with control points and there. So now you can hardly tell I used uh, let me go back to the eraser. There's a little bit more here in the front. And I'm doing it so it just kisses, the feathered part just kisses along the edge there. I think that looks pretty good. And now I'm going to brush a little bit back. Well, no, let's not do that. I'll do that with a control point. So if we look at the before and after, I think that looks pretty good. All right, let's do a little bit on the eye. The cardinals, this is a female cardinal. Whoops. Let me drag this down. I'm going to zoom in on the eye. Again, eyes, beaks, and talons. I'm going to try and drop it right on the brown part of this eye. I'm going to kick up the chroma just to +5. Let's do +10, so we're at 60. And I'll leave the luma right where it is. And let's just push the shadows and see if I can bring out that pupil a little bit better. That's a good brightness. You don't want it too bright. You don't want them to look like, they have glowing eyes. But that's offset easily with clear view and micro contrast, just to push the speculars a bit. Maybe push the highlight. All right, that looks good. Okay, the beak is already pretty solid. So what I'm going to do, I need to brighten up down here just a little bit more. So I'm just going to use a control point just underneath here. Just in a very subtle way. And we'll start with the shadows. Okay. Let's push the blacks a tiny bit, and then maybe the midtones. All right, good. And then the highlights can go right about there. So again, a nice straight line. Uh, right here, well, that's just dappled light on the bird, isn't it? So we're going to leave that because that's natural. Let me go to the talons. Since I skipped the beak, I forgot about the talons, but let me just pick the talons out. See if I can tighten up the luma and the chroma. Right about there, and we'll just tighten this up a bit. Here and here. Maybe a little bit there. And let's try midtones and highlights. Just give it a little specular, some clear view, micro contrast. All right, very good. I think I'll go with a vignette again, and then I'm going to just do a global brightening. So again, to do a vignette without film pack, just click somewhere, near the center of the subject, expand it out, turn off the chroma and luma masking, and invert it. And then let's just bring the exposure down, create a little bit of a vignette. Let's expand it a little more. All right, now let me go over to the global settings, and I want it to be just try smart lighting. I don't use this too often, but yeah, smart lighting didn't do anything. Excuse me. So I'm just going to brighten this up right about there. And if I'm not sure how much to brighten, I can always look at the histogram over here. And in the center here is mid-gray. So I can see we're still a little bit below that. So I'm going to, and it's okay because this bird's in the shade. But I think maybe just a third of a stop roughly. I think we're done. So let me export this. And do a compare or reset. F9 key, side by side. All right, so again, I think this is a good crop for this particular subject. And also, remember I put the tilt so that I have this leading line into the frame down here. And I think that looks pretty good. Let's just do a slider. And zoom in and so we can see the details. But I think DxO did a beautiful job with the feather detail in this case. And I didn't have to tweak any of the sharpening or noise reduction. I just left those at the default. But if I wanted to, I could go back and tweak them a little bit more. It needs just a little bit more tweaking on the sharpening. And I brought out the eye here, which, on Cardinals you can do sometimes. Just depends on the lighting. But I think that came out really good. So there's the before, and there's the after. That looks fantastic. Great shot of getting these blackberries here. Okay, Roger, thank you. And let's see. Wow, it's big time birding day here. So we have one here. Ooh, that's interesting. This is the green is starting to come in. So this is a little bit younger duck, I think. Uh, nice tight shot. And I would have liked it a tiny bit wider so I could straighten the horizon a bit. And let me go to single view, hit the F9 key. Let's apply our basic preset to get started. Because I don't know, I just like straight level horizon type shots. I'll do Dutch angle or these slightly angled shots time to time. And this bird is kind of facing away, so that's contributing to it. But we'll go with the way it is. I don't need to crop it all. We're already very tight. So all I have to do is think about the lighting. So what I want to do is maybe temper the water and bring out some of the texture because there's some really nice subtle ripples here. We'll temper the highlights a little bit here and see if we can bring out the eye a little bit more. I think that's it. So I'm going to use a control line. I don't need to do any global exposure changes. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to start down here and feather this all the way up. And then I'm going to really tighten up the chroma and luma so I'm not affecting the duck. I think that's pretty good there. Okay, let's just try clear view first. Yeah, that's bringing out the texture nicely. I don't want to use micro contrast because I don't want the water to get grainy. I want it to stay nice and smooth. If anything, I'll probably back off the micro contrast. All right, now let me pull back the blacks. We'll start here. Okay, that's not bad. Let's pull on the shadows a bit and the midtones. Okay, I like that. Now, I'm gonna just back off the clear view a little bit and pull the blacks in. So it's a little bit too blue once we made it darker. So what I'll do is I'm gonna go to, let's try the blue channel and just desaturate a bit. We can also pull the luminance down a bit too. Okay, I like it. Now, if I wanted to, I could also shift the blues like this. In this case, I think we're okay. It's really good color here. All right. So now it's darker here in the left corner than the right corner, so it adds a little bit of visual dynamics to the scene. So now let me work on the uh, head here and see if I can bring this eye back in. So I'm going to use a control point and drop it. Let me drop it on the highlights first. Ooh, this is a big control point. Let me drag this in. See if I can temper those a little bit. There, a bit here. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Let's just do a linear pull. Okay, now let's bring out the eye a little bit now. So I'm going to put the dropper or the control point right on the eye. And just come in very tight, like that. And we're going to push the shadows and overexpose it a bit, but then push the clear view. Bring it back in, and then some micro contrast to separate the speculars. All right, that looks good. Uh, Speculars are a little bit heavy. Maybe, I think we're okay. All right, right about there. Okay, the highlights here are a little bit strong, relatively speaking, because we darkened the head quite a bit. Let me go back to the head and let's just, yeah, I'm going to turn off this linear exposure pull that I did. Uh, Not bad. Just a slight pull. Let me go back to the eye and back off the shadows. Because I did a linear pull on this whole space, I need to adjust the eye. All right, good. Let's make a new control point for just this area in here. And I'm going to tighten up. No, we don't need to tighten anything up. Let's just temper that highlight a bit there, and we'll temper it a little bit on the wings and feathers. All right, so I want to exaggerate the greens a little bit. So I'm going to create a new control point and maybe the beak. I didn't worry about the beak because you can just barely see it. But let me tighten up the chroma mask or color. And we'll select this one too, up here. And a little bit of green here. Tighten that up. Tiny bit of green right there. All right, let's see if I can bring those out a little bit. I'll select the green and just push that. How about make them a little bit brighter? Yeah, I like that. Okay. I might have overdid it. Let me I'm just going to pull it back using the opacity. I rarely do it this way, but if I turn it off, just going to back it off a little bit. All right, now let me loop in and look at the feather detail. I think I can do a little better job with this. So let's go to the denoising panel. Let's crank this up to 1. Okay, and then maybe a little bit of unsharp mask. Turn that on. Let's expand the radius a bit. Okay, I think that might be too crunchy, but okay. How about down here? We got depth of field things going on over there. Okay, I think that's good. This beak, I want to bring that out a little bit. I should have done that first because let's use a very let's tighten up the chroma. Maybe just give it a little bit of a push. Start with the midtones. And then a little bit of vibrancy maybe just on the yellows. So I'm going to feather this in. Let's try the shadows a tiny bit. All right, good. And I'm going to go back to the eye. Something's just not there. I think that looks a little better. Let me pull back just a tiny bit. Okay, let's export that. And do comparison and reset. F9 key. And we'll do a side by side. So very subtle difference, right? Primarily, it's just darker here on the left side, a little bit of emphasis on the green, and then tempering the highlights. I also wanted to bring out the texture of the water. Composition, there's not much to do here because it's a very tight shot. And just to see the detail, we'll just punch in really tight for the stream. But there's the before. You can see just a little bit of softness here all the way around. And then as I bring in DxO, I think, yeah, it looks really good. Yeah, that looks great. All right, that's awesome. Really nice shot. That was from William. Thank you, William, for sending that one. And we have one here from Randy. This is a new camera for me anyway. What do we shoot here? Oh, good old D750. I remember that camera. With a 24 to 120 f4, awesome lens. So we're shooting at base ISO f8. Yep, all excellent settings here. And I saw a note you wanted to bring out the color on this, so I will try. So looking at it, I see hues of red and yellow and maybe some blues over here. Virtually no green, so red, yellow, blue. doubt there's any green down in here. So let's apply basic preset first. Okay, that's already showing a slight difference. And I'm going to use just control points. But the key difference here, and the sky is already dark, so the key thing here is I need to make sure my chroma mask is good and tight on these. Maybe the luma mask as well. That's about a 5 there. And I'm going to bring these in just on the parts where I see the yellow. A little bit of yellow in there. Maybe up there. No, that's a red, so I'm going to get rid of that. A little bit of yellow in here. Okay. So let me check one more time. Let's just push that saturation on those. I'm going to exaggerate the colors a little bit. Okay, so let's see where we're at. Yeah, just a little subtle hint there. If anything, shift them just a tiny bit away from the reds. Okay, good. And we'll just crank that up. All right, now let's work on the reds. So I'm going to do a new control point. I'm going to pick a very red spot. See how tight we can get. 60, not bad. Let's try 65. I may have to go a little higher on the masking. Yeah, that's better, about 70. And then luminosity will also push a tiny bit up to about 60. All right, let me try and grab some of these red areas. Like this. And look here. There's a hint of red here. And hints of red inside. So we're going to use smaller. Definitely all of this down here. And push hint of red there. A little bit tighter, hint of red there. Maybe just a small hint there, just to give a little accent. Okay. So let's go to the reds. And I may have to feather this a bit more into the yellow. It's not quite a red, but let's push that. All right, that looks good. It's a little bit of red in here. So we'll push that. Okay. How about on the front? Okay. I'm going to expand this because there's a little bit of reds in here. Push that to 100%. All right, awesome. Now let's work on the blues. I may have to back off the reds a little bit, but let's work on the blues. That's mostly right in here and a little bit of a kiss in there. So let's hit we're going to tighten up the luma and the chroma. We'll make that very tight. at about 70 again. And I'm just going to drop small control points. I don't want it bleeding off too much everywhere else. I want it to bleed in a little bit. Oh, that was kind of the reds. Let me, yeah, I need a very small one here. And very small ones in here. A little bit there, there, and there. I think that's all I see. So this one here is it's bleeding a little bit into the purple as well. So I'm gonna just feather this way a bit. And then let's just saturate and see what happens. Not getting much action out of that. Let me go over to the global setting for color, and I'm just gonna eyedropper it here. Maybe, yeah, right about there. Yeah, it's a little bit more into the purples. So let's go back to the thing and we'll just shift this. Whoops, I gotta select that control point. Let's just shift this over a bit. We'll bring this in. I'll feather more into the blues. It'd be nice if there was an eyedropper on this particular tool, but mm, feather a bit less. And then let's try a little bit of clear view to bring that out more. And some micro contrast. So again, I am exaggerating this quite a bit, but that's what that's what you wanted, right, Randy? Um, okay, that looks good. So there's little spots of greenish in here, and I'm going to see if I can just highlight these little patches of grass. I'll just use a control point. And let me give some thought to how I want to adjust these. There's a little one there, tiny one here, tiny one there. Okay, let me tighten up the Luma mask in this case because the color is very, very similar, but there is definitely a difference in lighting. Let me see. I think I'll just go with a linear pull and make them a little bit darker. Add some clear view, some micro contrast, and maybe push the midtones a bit up in here. All right. So I sort of exaggerated the vignetting up here in the corners. Wonder if I can fix that. Where is that tool? Maybe it's over here in this panel. See if I can push this. Yeah, that's too much. Right about there. And then I'm going to use a control line. Oh, I need to make a new one. Plus sign. I want to brighten up the gravel here a bit. So we'll just do a linear push. Maybe a linear push up here on the blues. Let's desaturate that a tiny bit. Okay, I'm going to go back to the reds and give a little micro contrast and a little bit of push on the shadows. Tones. Okay. All right. I'm going to call it there. Uh, Maybe that foreground will add some clear view as well and micro contrast. I'm just trying to separate this foreground a little bit more from these sandy hills. All right. Just a quick before and after. Yeah, that looks good. So let's export that. And set and compare side by side. All right, so I didn't go too crazy with the colors, but there's definitely a very strong distinction now between these sort of bluish purples, the yellows, and the reds. And that's all we needed to do. Uh, so if we do just a slider view, so there's the before. Let's get in a little closer. And right here, you can see how I emphasize the reds, right? Down in here. And now we're emphasizing the yellows. See, like right in here. And then we're pushing on the blues and purples, as you can see, like side by side. So really interesting set of rocks and sand. I think that came out. I think that came out pretty good. Oh, little sensor spots in here. You need to clean your sensor, Randy. Uh, okay, very good, very nice. All right, let's go to the next one here from Paul. What is that down there? It's a little alien creature. I don't know what that is down there. That's weird. What the heck is that? Hold on. Oh, it's part of the tree, dead tree in the shadow, I think. That's really weird though. I might brush this out. That's really distracting. So we have good focus in the center, but then this is out of focus. So clearly you wanted to emphasize this tree and the water and just use this as a framing vehicle. Um, we need to center this a little bit too. So let me apply basic preset first. And look at the cropping tool. So the arch is centered, but then the tree is not. And that's what's kind of bugging me. I wonder if I even need the foreground. I definitely don't need anything up here. I think this crop works a little better. The question is, do I need some foreground? Because I don't want to lose that sense of depth that we're getting. Let's try that. Oh, maybe not. I need a little bit more on top, a little less on the bottom. Okay, that works. Except for this thing, whatever that is. I gotta brush that out first. That's bothering me. I'm just gonna zoom in. Yeah, that's better. Okay, the lighting. Now, the lighting, I want the inside of the frame to be brighter than the outside. So we have it on the left already. I need to just temper the highlights here. So let's do a control line. Start about here and just bleed in. Put the eyedrop over there and see if I can just temper the highlights a bit. Yeah, that looks good. Let's try a linear pull. I'm gonna tighten up the chroma a bit because the grass down here is getting affected. So I'm gonna tighten up the chroma. See how it's dark down here? If I just tighten up the chroma mask, the color, it'll exclude that. Okay, I think that works. Yeah, that helps a lot. And then some nice yellows on this tree. I think that'll help bring it out more. And the greens here are very faded because it's just drying out. So I might have to bring those back a little bit. Okay, I have a strategy. So composition, white balance is fine, exposure is perfect. Now we need to create some accents to highlight for me, the subject is that tree way in the background and bring back a little bit of life because everything is kind of like dying here, right? I don't know if there was a drought or something or if it's just that time of year. So I'm going to go in very tight. Let me start down here. I'm going very tight on this yellow. And I might have to make even tighter chroma mask. Yeah, right about there. I'm just going to spot. That's not quite right. Let's try. Let's try this one and this one. Not quite. We'll leave that alone. Come up here a bit. Yep. Over here a tiny bit. Down here. Let me just pull that in. I don't really need to zoom in and out like this. I could just use this to move around. Uh, I'm having trouble isolating the base here. So I'm just going to use very small ones, very small control points, just to give a kiss of color. in this area. And that one's too small. Right there and there. All right, that's kind of where I'm going. Uh, let's let's get a couple more spots in here. So what I need to do, I think, is let me just saturate it first. I might have to shift the color a little bit. Let's go to the oranges and spread this into the yellows a bit. Okay, that works. Yep, there we go. And it looks like in the background there's some more of that. So I'm gonna just kind of get here into the trees. All right, good. Now let's work on these greens. Let's do a new control point and we'll hit these greens. I tighten up the chroma. Right about here. And one here. One there. A little bit there, maybe. Yeah, that's pushing it. Not a lot of green left in that space. Let's go over here. Touch these greens a bit. I think I got it. Uh, maybe in the background too, just a bit. All right, let's see if I can saturate these successfully. So I'm going to pick the greens. I'm going to back off the yellow side of that green and just saturate these. Maybe pull the luminance in and let's shift it a tiny bit that way. Okay, that's good. Uh, these control points are kind of overdoing it. I need to go back to that. Let me make a new one. Same idea though. I just kind of want to touch on this foliage a little bit. Just bring a little bit of life back. A little bit more. Maybe here. Okay, so the last thing is maybe some of the reds here in the foreground. So let's go over to another control point and just let's make a little tighter chroma mask. Okay. Some of the reds here. Oh, there's a little bit of green up here I need to touch. Okay, and a little bit there. Okay, let's go back to the red. Touch a red there. Touch a red here. That's not so red, but I'll add a little bit. And let's just push it. Good. Good, good, good. Maybe it's like pushing the midtones and shadows and some clear view. Okay. So that tree, let me go back to this tree. What if I cool this off a little bit? Yeah, that helps. All right, now let's work with the water. I want the water to be a little darker, so I'm going to make a new control point in these bluer areas. Let me tighten this up a bit. And let's tighten up the chroma and the luma just a little bit. All right, we're good. Let's try clear view first. Not bad. Pull in the blacks a little bit. And let's just desaturate the blue just a little bit. Maybe pull the luminosity down. Maybe a little bit on the highlights there too. Okay. All right, I think that's it. So let me export. And give that 5 seconds to process. All right, good. So let's reset side by side. Okay, so for me, it was just about bringing a little bit of life back with the greens and emphasizing the reds in the foreground, and then giving this tree a little bit more pop in the background. I can still do more. I think I need to do more. Let me let me see if I can. I need to brighten this area a little bit. So let me get a control point. Let me darken this bluer area in here. And then a new control point just to add a little emphasis in here. We'll do a linear push like that. And then let's darken this area, kind of a linear pull. Okay, now I'm done. Give that 5 seconds. There. Reset. All right. Yeah, I think that looks better. So just a little more saturation across the scene, but selectively saturating, uh, tempering the highlights here, minimizing the distraction up here, and whatever this is, uh, this black spot. And we'll just do a slider view. So there's the original, like I said, the grass and everything is very flat. So I think sort of bringing out the colors and the saturation and the reds and the greens, and then just pulling the blues in, I think it looks pretty good. All right, very good. Thank you, Paul. And then one more here from John. Okay, this is the same hillside we saw a week or two ago, but now we got a bunch of canoers here. And this yellow sort of matches the yellow that's, these flowers are still all over the place. Um, I like the textures here. So we got red, very strong reds here. We need to temper the highlights here. I think I can crop out that building. Crop out this top part where the power lines are. So let's try, let's start with a basic preset. And let's just try cropping in just a bit. Maybe a bit more. Okay. Feel like it needs just a little bit of a tilt. What if I click this? No. So we'll need to come in and fix that. All right, good. So I think what I'll do is, it really doesn't need any more saturation, so I'm just going to work with the tones. I think that's the way to go, meaning tones, meaning the luminance across this frame. So I have to give some thought about maybe making the greens a little bit darker, the yellows brighter in the hill, temper the highlights on some of the spots, and I think we're good. So let me just start with the highlights. Um, these areas here are really much brighter than they need to be. Okay, good. Oh, so this house is yellow. Now I can see. It's a very faint pastel yellow, but and these are more orangey greens. I mean, orangey yellows and reds. All right, a little bit there, a little bit extra. Let's try and pull that in even more. Okay, I'm going to tighten this up. That looks good. All right, now the greens, let me try a global shift. So I'm going to put the dropper here, select a greenish area. We're going to back away from the yellows. And let's see if I can make those just a little darker. And then let's go to the uh, yellows. I'm going to select right in there, and we're going to back off the, oh crap, I'm not paying attention here. I didn't separate the greens and the yellows enough. Let's try again. This, let me reset this. So I'm going to select green instead of using the eyedropper. Let's let's just pull the luminance in a bit and select the yellows and brighten those just a hair. Okay. This tree needs a little bit of tempering. Let's go in here, maybe just some clear view and pull the blacks in a bit more. Okay, I think I'm done. So export to disk and compare it there, reset. Okay, so here's the original, just a slight crop and tilt uh, to get rid of these power lines and this very bright building over here. It's just throwing the balance off. I'd have to crop into the left side if I wanted to keep that, but then there's nothing going on there. So that's why I cropped here, and then I cropped right along this top line. Temper the highlights a bit. Oh, the water, I didn't really touch the water. I didn't need to because when I was pulling the greens and yellows up in here, it worked with the water. So let's do slider view. So there's the original. And then you can see how the reds are much more saturated by just tempering the highlights. Because I didn't touch the reds in this scene. Uh, but what I want to do is just separate the tones between the yellows, meaning the luminance between the yellow and the greens. So I brighten the yellows a bit and I pull the greens back a bit. And this is my final image. So I think these yellows now kind of complement the yellow canoes. And then a red is a nice contrast to the greens, right? Okay. Um, that's it. So awesome. Those are awesome images. I got through those relatively quickly today. I don't know. Feels like I went through them a little faster, but some really great images. Let me see if anybody submitted anything else while I'm here. Uh, so I need to go here. Yeah, I see one from Noah. Let me download that. And I see Paul Crisp sent his edit in, so I'll download that. Oops. Is this? Yeah. Sorry, I downloaded to the wrong place. I got to do it one more time. Okay. Uh, So I'm trying to think. I think this is Paul Crisp edit versus my edit. Let's do a side. Let's do. Let me just reference. Oh, that's interesting. So I think Paul did kind of the opposite on the foreground. He brought the shadows back and then tempered the highlights to make this whole space even. Whereas I kept the sort of the dynamic range here. Yeah, I probably could have brightened the shadows a little bit. I wouldn't have done it quite as much as you did here, but I think looking at yours, I would bring the shadows up a little bit. So that's a key difference. And then you didn't do much with the greens. You did get rid of that thing there, but you also filled in the bald spots in the grass, which I did not do. I don't know. I don't think that's necessary, but it makes sense. Uh, but yeah, I went a lot richer on the greens in the background, and then the water much darker. So I wanted the center to be the brightest part of the scene. I think that's primarily why I didn't bring the shadows up like you did. I wanted the center back here to be brighter than the rest. So a little different approach, but this is good too. I don't know, Paul, what do you think? Or what does the audience think? Okay, yeah, not critiquing at all, just analyzing the differences in approach here. Um, Gosh, you also got rid of this weed over here. So you did a lot of individual touch up in the foreground. I don't see anything done with the sticks, but the crop is amazingly similar. I'm just a tiny bit tighter. You can tell by this big gap up here versus mine, but the crop is very, very similar. Other than that, I'm just a tiny bit tighter. All right, so it looks like Noah sent one in. So let me go to that. And I will apply. I think this is the first image you've ever sent me, right? Um, Gosh, I hope I'm still live. I don't see my chat window. But anyhow, wow, there's not much to do here, honestly. This scene is almost perfect. The only thing I would do different, I mean, the exposure is perfect and really nice lens combination. I think I'll just go with a 16 by 9, like a super wide crop. What's this down here? Some kind of structure there. A little bit of a structure here too. And these are obviously tourists, but that is awesome. So all I really need to do is maybe a 16 by 9 or 16 by 7 crop, and then just sharpen things up because it's a little bit soft when you zoom 400% or whatever. So and maybe bring out the colors right in here. Okay, so let me just start with a crop. I think a 16 by 7 would look good, and just bring that in a bit. Perfect. Maybe a little bit tighter. just to bring, I want the subjects to be a little bit larger in the frame. I think that's a good crop right there. Maybe even a little bit left. Okay, let's separate the tones a little bit. I think I can do it globally because this is already really well exposed. The lighting is really nice here. So I don't need to do local adjustments. I think I just need to kind of, I'm going to temper this a little bit. Uh, Let me try this eyedropper right in here. And just push the luminance a little bit. Okay. What's down in here is pretty much the same color, but that's all right. Okay. I think some global contrast like that. Let me back off the micro contrast. Let me go back to this yellow and push that a little more. Okay. And then this background is really nice, but I just want to temper it just a little bit. So let me tighten up the Luma mask a bit and just, I'm not sure. Micro contrast, yeah, just a little bit. Or clear view. Yeah, clear view is a little better. I just want to bring out the mountains a little bit. Pull, pull the blacks in a little bit more. Push the highlights. How about the midtones? No, I think we're good. And I'm going to spread that. Let's see. Yeah, that's good. Just a very subtle difference. Okay, now let me work on the people right here. So I'm going to use actually a local control, some control points here. And I just want these reds to kind of stand out a little bit. Let me do that first, and then I'll work on the camels and the blues. I'm going to tighten up the chroma and just push the shadows. And we'll do the same thing for the blues. And a little more push. And the heads, very subtle. And the face here. Okay. All right. And then maybe the camels too. I think I can get away with just the same control point. Okay. Some micro contrast, maybe some regular contrast, a little bit of clear view, maybe a linear push. Okay, perfect. Uh, let's export that. This is in Morocco. Hey, Noah, how are you? Um, this is your first image to the stream, right? Okay. DxO reset and oh, I gotta get that reference image off. Compare no corrections with output. There we go. Got a little confused there. That they need to work on that tool a little bit too. So let's just look at the overall composition, right? I think a 16 by 7 works really well here because with wide angle shots, there's always too much sky and too much foreground. And I cropped it so that we have a nice leading line into the scene. And if anything, I would crop more over here so we have more space over here and bring the people a little bit more to the right. So I would like to crop this a little bit differently, but I think this works. So let's do a slider. Oh, I did a monkey picture for you. Yeah, that makes sense. So let's do a slider. So here's my edit, right? And then here's the original image. So, the typical, just as with every raw file, regardless of camera and lens, it's always going to be a little bit soft and a little desaturated. So raw files are meant to be processed. But then as I bring this in, the main thing I wanted to do is increase the contrast across the board, basically. Whoops. And yeah, I think that came out really nice. Beautiful scene. I love how the light is bright right in here, kind of naturally, which brings the eye in. Everything is perfect in this. For me, I couldn't have done a better job myself if I was there. If we want to look at the fine print in the details, let me get the slider back. I lost my slider. There it is. So let's zoom in here, and you can see just kind of the differences I come across. They're slightly out of focus, and not because you miss focus, but the depth of field, right? But when you look at this picture in its normal, uh, the way it's supposed to be looked at, I think this is great. All right. So you were on a camel yourself, huh? That's funny. That's awesome. You did a great job there. All right. We're all done. So any questions about any of the editing I did or, DxO in general? I'm happy to answer them now. Like I said, DxO is my editor of choice. Uh, as you can see, I think the results it produces are the best. And that's why every week I do this editing to show you the power of DxO. And I'm running these streams this month, at least this month, ad free. so you get an uninterrupted viewing experience because I understand it's been pretty dreadful. So I'm going to rely completely on donations and memberships. And if you use my affiliate link to purchase DxO to support these weekly streams, and it's greatly appreciated. Also, sending images in and participating in the chat section is another great way to support the work that I do here. It's always good to hear and see from everyone and interact as a community. That's you can't put a price on that, right? So you guys have a great rest of your day, a great weekend, and a good life. Eat healthy, exercise. I want to see you guys for a long, long time. So thanks so much for joining me today. I'll be back Sunday a little bit later than my usual streams, and so it's about 4 or 5 hours later than I usually do my streams on Sunday. I usually do them in my time. I usually start around 9 o'clock in the morning. I probably won't be able to start until 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So 4 or 5 hours out from my normal. Assuming I still have the energy, I'm going to be out photo shooting and socializing all morning Sunday. Uh, but I'll set up the stream and let me just address this thing about T. Dobbs about the masking. I think I saw something earlier about subject protect masking in AI. This is the catch with AI subject detect, right? Everybody's doing this now. Is they're starting to upsell the AI tools in the sense that like getting credits with Adobe and Topaz and all these other companies, they're adding, and DxO might eventually be there. Who knows? They might go that route too. As of right now, they're a one-time pay. That is the model that they've been with for a long, long time. But when you look at all the other editing softwares, the bigger ones, Lightroom and Luminar and Topaz, all these guys have gone to a basically pay per use. So my fear is if they start introducing these very powerful cloud-based type AI subject detect and things like that, especially if it's going to be cloud-based where you get better results, they might start to charge for that. So it's one of those things, is it better to have it and not use it, or use it when you need it, and be willing to pay for it? Because if DxO starts doing things like that, starts adding AI detection and all of these things, to get the best experience with these AI tools, you really have to be online with the cloud and access the latest models and whatever algorithms that they have online. Uh, and that costs money, and they're going to be forced to charge for it, in my opinion. Maybe they won't. If they introduce cloud-based AI subject detect and things like that and don't charge extra for it, that's great. But I seriously doubt it. Even DaVinci Resolve, if I recall, uh, they're not there yet, but they're thinking about it, right? DaVinci Resolve is it's a video editing software that you pay one time. I paid $300 years ago, and I've been getting updates ever since. I started with DaVinci Resolve like 10 or something, version 10. They're up to version 20, and I never had to pay an upgrade fee. Uh, but they're thinking about switching over. So yeah, Randy makes a good point, right? They're charging for AI stuff. So I I question if they start to go down that path, are they going to go ahead and start charging for everything and go to a subscription model for the entire product? That would be an issue. Um, because I'm really happy with, you know, buying one time and being able to upgrade. In this case, that you can upgrade to the later versions at a reduced price, usually about half the price of just buying it again. But you don't have to upgrade. There's people still using Photolab 5, Photolab 4. They're completely happy, you know? Because really the only updates you get when you have older versions are for new cameras and lenses. But the new tools and things, you have to upgrade to the latest version. Like DxO Photolab 9 is coming out. Now, being an affiliate, I'm in a position I don't have to worry about it anymore. But I was paying for uh, DxO Photolab and the upgrades until the last couple of years. Since version 6, I've been uh, an affiliate and all of that. But and the Luminar is a one-time payment. Yeah, yeah. I'm not quite familiar with the other payment models. I think Luminar offers both, right? Subscription and payment. It's crazy, but I know that DxO is just a one-time, and you can use it for as long as you want, right? So I like that. If they give the option to pay for AI generated or AI math, whatever, AI tools, I'd be okay with that as long as they don't touch the core program being having all of the tools that we have. But if all of a sudden I go in there and they said, you know what, we have Deep Prime version XD4. If you want to use it, it's $10 or whatever, right? It's like, oh, wow. Could be the greatest thing since sliced bread. But that's my fear if they start going that route. But I agree, the masking tools aren't very strong. They're a little bit weak. They're old school masking. They just use internal algorithms in the software to find the edges, and uh, that's why I got so much bleeding and all of that in the masking. But I can temper that tool using a feathered brush. I mean, it's the old way of doing it because I do use Adobe, but man, they're starting to charge now for everything that I used to just take for granted. So I hardly use Photoshop and Lightroom for anything to begin with, but when I did, it was specifically for the AI tool, and now they're charging for them. Um, so I just don't want to see DxO go down that route myself. But I'm with you. I'm with you overall in terms of the workflow and stuff and the tools. I wish they were a little bit more modern, but that's going to come at a cost potentially, which I would be not okay with. Maybe at first it'll be great. So, okay, I'm never going to use those AI tools anyway. I like what I have. But then, like 2 years from now, if they say, well, if you want the latest, it's a subscription. It's scary, right? What's the term about be careful what you ask for or what you wish for? Um, give them an inch, they take a mile, all of those things. And then just real quick, Rob, check my small. Oh, okay, I'll check it out. Let's see. Uh, I mean, it's kind of a short stream today. I got through the edits a little quicker, and I didn't talk as much in the chat section. But let's see. I assume you're on Flickr, so I'm going to go to your page, go to albums. Okay, I see you here. Oh wow, you went hardcore, man. Really saturated, but it looks great. Super heavy saturation, much more than I would be comfortable with personally, especially this blue up here. Wow, that's awesome though. If we go back to the one I did, man, mine looks like a black and white now. Where's the where's your edit? Oh, here. Mine looks almost monochromatic next to yours. That's hilarious, but that's awesome. Um, what else you got in here? Yeah, these are great, Randy. I would have had no idea I would have had no idea that this scene was so flat looking at this picture. Um, my God, this is from 2022. I would have had no idea that this image was originally that, right? For that. Okay, that's cool. Uh, but yeah, that's over the top for me personally. But again, that's subjective. That's subjective, right? But I would not have done that. Ken Rockwell has been wrongly maligned. He's the guy that has that Nikon stuff, right? I used to read his stuff time to time when I was shooting Nikon. And well, okay, I'm gonna end it here. You guys, thanks so much. I will see you again next week for another photo editing stream, if not sooner. Take care.